Ready? You got where in your head where you're going to go? 3, 2, 1, move. Oh, did he influence you? All right. Okay, great. So you're both on slightly disagree. Who wants to go first to give reasons for why you're on that line?
I'll go first.
You're going first? All right.
Sure.
All right. What is your main reason for being on this line?
I don't think it depends on how we define gender for me, and I think of it as software for sex relations, something like that. And so I think it's partially constructed, but tied to something natural and biological.
What percentage of gender is biological versus social, if that's a fair categorization?
I have no idea. It might differ from person to person if I'm thinking about it as their software.
For you yourself, how much is your gender biological or social?
I don't know. I'd really have to think more about that. So that would be how much of my behavioral patterns and expression are a result of, like, a natural result of the sex that I am versus constructed by the society that I live in. I don't know. I'd say more than half of my gender software is natural, not socially constructed. But I'm really in the dark here. I could change my mind quickly on this one.
Okay, great. Let's listen to him. I'll come back to you. All right, so what's your main reason for being on this line?
So, slightly disagree because you are born one way, and that influences your gender. And some people might wish to identify as a gender they were not born with, and they're welcome to that through society, but I see gender as what you're born with.
What you're born with, is that the biological part of it?
Yes.
Mm-hmm. Is someone cursed to be the gender that they're born with, or can they change if they feel like it or identify with a different one?
They can identify as whatever they're happy with, and I'm welcome to respect whatever someone wants to identify with. But I know I was born a man, and I identify as a man.
And gender is the kind of thing that can change due to merely identifying in a different way versus what's something that is a category that applies to human that someone cannot identify out of?
Race.
Race is something you're born with and you can't change by identifying out of it.
Yeah.
And gender is something you're born with but can identify out of it.
I'm treating gender and sex as two different ideas. So
What's sex?
what you're born with.
Is that something you can identify out of or no?
No.
Okay. So gender is one. Is there anything else you can identify out of that you're born with?
Not that I can really think of. Or you could be born to, say, a religious cult and then leave that cult.
Yeah, born a certain religion, and then like not merely identify, but just be convinced it's false and just fall away from that or something. Like beliefs, ideology. These are things. Okay, great. Anything else to say right now?
No?
Okay, I'll come back to you. Anything else needs to be defined in this claim? But what do you mean? What's a good definition of social construct?
I guess I took it as not tied to nature at all. Like, it could be arbitrary and go one way or the other depending on the culture.
An arbitrary cultural...
Potentially arbitrary. Yeah, potentially arbitrary.
Potentially.
I kind of asked for a definition of gender so I could answer this question better, but I ended up just giving mine, so I don't know if if you guys gave me your definition that you're thinking of, I might answer differently.
I don't want to bias. I just want to be a neutral question asker.
That's fair.
You can ask me after if you want, for my opinion. Was his definition of gender your definition of gender, or what was yours, real quick, again? Something social?
Basically the software of sex.
The software of sex. Is that a fair gender definition?
Yeah, I think that's a fair way to see it.
All right. So that's analogous to like a computer. Computers are built with certain hardware, but you can swap out software with computers. People are built or born with certain genders, but you can also swap out human software like as a different gender. What is like computers have certain video like programs. What is the program of a masculine gender and the programs of feminine gender? What would those be?
What I saw, the software for both sexes has
I'm sure a bunch of overlap.
yeah, a bunch of overlap, like parenting and being productive and helpful to the people around you. But the part that seems to be specifically male in humans is, well, it's not exclusively male, but males are more inclined to do the violence and protection, physical defense of society. That seems to be the thing that's somewhat exclusive, partially exclusive. So,
What I'm hearing you say is more male gender. One example of it is like the protector role of humans in that society, up to like physical violence.
yeah, and I'm just emphasizing that because I think it's the thing that's least shared with the female gender role.
The thing that's least shared.
Yeah.
Okay. And real quick, any female gender program?
Nothing stands out in the same regard. They're both have parenting roles and roles to society. Like, those seem to be similar to me.
I'll come back to you. Cool. What do you think is part of male and female gender that when people switch their identity, they're trying to get to be seen as someone associated with those programs? What are some examples of those for male and female gender?
Like gender roles? Is that what you're asking? Well, there's, the traditional stereotypes in gender roles, like, you have your, like, stay-at-home mom kind of stereotype, then you have your breadwinner dad stereotype, and those could be roles, but I don't really think people transition because they want to feel comfortable in those roles. People just might see themselves as feeling more comfortable identifying as a gender that doesn't match with what they're born as, and they're welcome to that.
Okay. If we had like 10 people who were born female and wanted to identify as male or men versus women, and we said, why did you do that? What did you want to identify with? What would be like their top one or two answers, do you think?
I really have no idea. Yeah. It could vary between person. I don't really know many people who have, so.
Any idea about that? If we polled like 10 people who were born women and wanted to identify as men, and we asked them, why did you want to do that? What do you think they would say their top one or two reasons for doing that?
Something about a disconnect between how they want to behave and how they're expected to behave. I don't know. The reasons that they would give would be so different. I'm trying to come up with something that loosely summarizes all of them. I don't know.
Yeah, what I'm hearing you say is they want to behave a certain way, and something about general norms in society are stopping them from doing that? Or like, is that fair to say?
I wouldn't say stopping, but there's
A big pressure.
there's pressure to behave in certain ways, and so they'd say something about how they don't feel like behaving in the way that they're expected to by certain stereotypes or by other people.
Okay. All right. So you're both on slightly disagree. Could either of you two represent any, like the agree line? Could you give reasons for someone who might be on the agree line? Either one of them? Do you have something?
I considered standing on the agreed line because I consider it to be partially socially constructed. So I guess I maybe misinterpreted the question as meaning that it's entirely a social construct and stood on slightly disagree. But I think that my definition of gender as software of sex implies that it's malleable and that society could shape someone's gender. So it's somewhat socially constructed. I could have stood on slightly agree, I suppose.
Yeah, if we make the claim more specific and clear, if it was gender is entirely socially constructed, where would you both be? Okay, let's pretend that's the claim for now. Gender is entirely socially constructed? All right, and let's say gender is 50% socially constructed. Where would you be? 50% or more. What line would you be on for that? Same? Same? If the claim is gender is 50% or more, okay? And, all right, let's just say that's the claim, right? Yeah.
Oh, no, sorry, I wasn't. If the claim is a 50% or more socially constructed, that it's more than 50% socially constructed.
At least 50% socially constructed.
I would stand here.
Stand there? The same? All right. What would the claim need to say in order to be on that side of the lines?
Gender is at least partially socially constructed, and then I'd stand on the agree side. So 1%.
Okay. If gender is at least 1% socially constructed?
Yeah, it's at least partially socially constructed. At least partially socially constructed, and then I would agree.
Alrighty, cool. All right. Any other questions we should focus on for this claim?
Not that I can think of.
All right, cool. What'd you think of the game? How was that?
It was an interesting experience.
Awesome. Thank you. What'd you think?
It was an honor and a pleasure.
Well, thank you. Appreciate it.